Today's lesson 6.10, we're going to look at two different things, congruents and decimals with base 10 blocks. Congruent figures you're going to see in this image here. A congruent figure is any figure that is exactly the same. By exactly the same, I mean that they have to be the same size, the same shape. If we look at these two circles right here, they're the same size and they're the same shape. So we would call them congruent shapes. Now look at these two. Are these two the same shape? Are they the same size? No, so they would be not congruent. The same is with this one. There's two triangles. Now, even though they are flipped upside down, they are still congruent because they have the same size and the same shape. Here, these two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 sides, so we would call that what? Heptagon. This is also a heptagon, but they are not the same size, so we would say they are not congruent. Then it shows us the example with the letter F. Okay, all they did was flip the F. This is like a mirror image, kind of we talked about with the symmetry. Those are congruent because they're the same size, it's the same image, it's just flipped. This is also two images that are congruent, just rotated or flipped a little bit. These two, although they look similar, are not congruent because this one has 5 points and this one has 4. They're not the same shape. H and I. By looking at that, are they the same size, the same shape? No, so we would say not congruent. If I were to draw two squares, are those congruent? Are they the same size? No. Are they the same shape? Maybe, but they're not congruent. The second thing we're going to talk about is with the base 10 block decimal designs. Now you'll see this page from your math journal, page 148. Now we don't have base 10 blocks at home, so we're just going to imagine what it would be like. Okay? So if we follow step 1, make a design by putting some cubes on the flat. Okay? You could use your pencil and draw a design on this grid that you have here. Okay? It tells you then on step 2 to do that same thing. It says, copy your design in color onto one of the grids in your journal on page 149. So if my design is, let's say, a smiley face with a funny square nose, I would color in these 4 spots. It's a little bit hard to do this. Okay? So there I have my design. Step 3 asks you, how much of the flat is covered by the cubes in your design? To help you find out, exchange as many cubes as you can for longs. Well, we also don't have longs again, and my smiley face got a little bit messed up. but we can count how many cubes we've used. So let me get another color to point it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, that's not 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There I used 13 cubes. Now if I put that into a long, 13 cubes has at least 10 in it. And then it has 3, so it would be 1 long and 3 ones. The next part, step 4, asks you to figure out which decimal tells how much of the flat is covered by cubes. Write the decimal under the grid. Since we just counted that we're using 13 cubes, you have to think about the flat that we're saying that the cubes are out of. So if there's 13 cubes on a flat, there are 13 little boxes out of the entire grid. So how many boxes are in the entire grid? Do you remember? It's a flat. If you said 100, you're correct. Remember, a flat has 100 little squares. So you have 13 out of 100. That can be written as 13 out of 100. Or it could be written as a decimal. We would read it as 13 hundredths. 13 hundredths with the TH. Okay? How do we do a hundredths in decimal form? 13 hundredths. 0, we have no whole numbers. Point, and then you have to think about those two things. So we look, and this was the tenths place, and this is the hundredths place. Well, our number is 13. We have 1/10 and 3 hundredths. So another way of looking at this would be, if we didn't have our smiley face there, to cover 13 of these little boxes. There's 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay? So your decimal would go right here on the bottom line. As 0.13. Okay? Now, each one of these, now in my example here, I did a smiley face on this one right here, and then I did the same on this one. I will challenge you to try and do the decimal from just your design, because we don't have the actual blocks to set it up. For your work, you have math boxes in addition to the math journal decimals and your home link. The home link is with the congruent figures. If it gives you a shape, you circle which other figures are congruent. Remember, if it's congruent, it has to be the same size and the same shape. That and that are, even though I drew them, congruent. This one and this one are not congruent.